the necessity of knowing who Sthita Prajna is, what are the symptoms, and why should we know about them. It covers this from 54th verse till 72nd verse. It's about 16 verses. No, it's about 19 verses. 54 till 64:10, another 19 verses. These verses are so important that even though we would have known, we would have heard, still very, very important and pertinent to know it. Unfortunately, the PPT that I wanted to share maybe is lacking something, but I want to share the whole idea of what it is and how it is so important for us. So if there is one, I'll share some places between Vedabase and the PPT, and we can see what Krishna is trying to say. So let's start with this. As you all know, the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is entitled as Contents of Gita Summarized. That means the entire Bhagavad Gita is summarized in chapter 2. And incidentally, when I was taking chapter 2 summary, we could not go till the Sthita Prajna portion. There was paucity of time, and that was the second day. I couldn't reach there because chapter 2 itself is huge. Like it's 72 verses, and it is the contents of the Gita summarized. So it's a lot of content. In summary, Gita, the acronym that we have for the second chapter, which stands for the necessity of having a guru, which we saw yesterday, the identity or who am I, which is the second portion, the Sankhya Yoga, the difference between body and soul. Then Krishna talks about two kinds of duties, Nitya Dharma and Swadharma. And then he talks about Atmaram, or this verse of this portion of Sthita Prajna. There's two kinds of duties which Krishna mentions while mentioning about the Nitya Dharma. He talks about something called Buddhi Yoga. The second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is also known as Buddhi Yoga, or the portion where Krishna talks about Nitya Dharma. He talks about something called Buddhi Yoga, and he mentions there, Osana Pratha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. And then he concludes with the portion called Sthita Prajna. Now, to know about Sthita Prajna and what exactly it is, maybe days are insufficient, but we have 1 hour. So there is always a race against time because of our schedule and because of our priorities, because of our the way things are. It's very difficult to capture people's attention, despite knowing the importance of it. When it comes to being discussed, we somehow physically are present, but mentally may not be. So even if we are not able to finish, if we get the major points in this section, because I said it's 19 verses, and each of them are very profound and deep in themselves, it still is worth it, because our intellect, our mind, and our senses are able to absorb things which we need to. So what I'll do is, let's start with the why, because why is always the important thing. Why should I know about the Sthita Prajna? Why should I know the symptoms of a self-realized soul? How is it going to help me? So I told, as I said, there's a lot of information in the second chapter, and the last verse, 72nd verse of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually says why this is required. And so I have today's verses. They are not just one verse. So 72nd verse, I will read this because this sets the context, and then we will see the portion of Sthita Prajna. So this verse, Krishna is telling, Esa Brahmi Sthitih Parthaha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati Sthita Vasyam Antakalepi Brahma Nirvanam Archati. In this verse, there are many words which are very important. First word is Brahmi Sthiti. Esa Brahmi Sthiti Partha. So Sthiti means is a state. It's a state of consciousness. It's a state of being. So we can be happy, we can be morose, we can be sad, we can be, so many mood changes we have, so many things we go through. But here Krishna is referring to something called Brahmi Sthiti. Brahmi Sthiti, Esa Brahmi Sthiti Partha, Nainam Prapya Vimukshyati. So if one reaches to the state of Brahmi Sthiti, he will not be bewildered. Vimukshyati. Nainam Prapya Vimukshyati. So once one attains that state of Brahmi Sthiti, he will not be bewildered. And Krishna is telling, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. This is the way. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life. Esa Brahmi Sthiti Partha. So that is the way is actually referring to the symptoms or the activities of Sthita Prajna. If we understand and follow and develop those, then we will come to that Brahmi Sthiti. And by coming to that Brahmi Sthiti, one will be not bewildered. Nainam Prapya Vimukshyati. Stitvasyam Antakalepi Brahma Nirvanam Archati. Stitvasyam, Stitva Asyam. So if one is situated in that kind of a state, then even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. Brahma Nirvanam Archati. The word nirvana is used frequently by the Buddhists, where they want to end their existence and they want to achieve that nirvana. But Bhagavad Gita's knowledge is far superior, where Krishna is talking about Brahma Nirvana. And the word meaning, if you see, it is the spiritual kingdom of God. It is not some merging with Brahman or ending the existence. No. One can enter into the kingdom of God. Stitvasyam antakalepi Brahma Nirvanam Archati. Wonderful purport. We will see that. One can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once. So, His Divine Grace, the founder Acharya of the worldwide movement, he is telling how difficult or easy it is. One can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second. And the or is a very scary thing. One may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. It's only that. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. Sometimes we understand, but we don't accept. Sometimes, see, this is the most perplexing thing. Many of the things we know, but we think I am an exception while following it. Right? At least I'm doing some devotional service. I'm cooking. I'm doing some service. I'm doing. So why do you expect me to be a perfect devotee in this? Whatever I'm doing. That's where the problem is. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. We don't accept. It's my children. I'm okay. I know I'm not body. I'm spirit, soul. But after all, these are all my children, my husband, my wife, my house. They will be exempt from these rules. For everybody else, these rules are applicable. First thing is, it is applicable for us. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. That's why Prabhupada is saying one can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second. Or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. And then he gives the example of Khatwanga Maharaj, attained this state of life just a few minutes before his death by surrendering unto Krishna. And then he explains nirvana means ending the process of materialistic life. According to Buddhist philosophy, there is only void after the completion of this material life. But Bhagavad Gita teaches differently. Actual life begins after the completion of this material life. For the gross materialist, it is sufficient to know that one has to end the materialistic way of life. But for persons who are spiritually advanced, there is another life after this materialistic life. Gross materialists who have no conception of soul, God, spiritual kingdom. They think we'll just enjoy as much as possible and we will end life. But spiritual knowledge, Vedic literature or Vedic scriptures are telling the real life begins after that. But for a person who's spiritually advanced, there is another life after this materialistic life. Before ending this life, if one fortunately becomes Krishna conscious, he at once attains the stage of Brahma Nirvana. There is no difference between the kingdom of God and the devotional service of the Lord. Since both of them are on the absolute plane, to be engaged in the transcendental serving, loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. So if we are engaging in devotional service, there is no difference between kingdom of God and doing devotional service because both of them are on the absolute plane. In the material world, there are activities of sense gratification. Whereas in the spiritual world, there are activities of Krishna consciousness. Attainment of Krishna consciousness, even during this life, is immediate attainment of Brahman. And one who's situated in Krishna consciousness has certainly already entered into the kingdom of God. Brahman is just the opposite of matter. Therefore, Prabhupada is highlighting the Brahmistiti. Therefore, Brahmistiti means not on the platform of material activities. Devotional service of the Lord is accepted in Bhagavad Gita as the liberated stage. Sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So Brahmistiti, brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And it is beyond the modes of material nature. Sagunan samatitaitan, atityaitan, going beyond, surpassing the modes of material nature. Therefore, Brahmistiti is liberation from material bondage. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has summarized this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as being the contents for the whole text. In the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matters are Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. In the second chapter, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga have been clearly discussed, and a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga has also been given as the contents for the complete text. So the first few lines, one can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second. Or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. And what decides is the matter of understanding and accepting the fact. One can never accept, can never surrender, can live independently, whatever whimsical way one thinks of, and continue to live in this material world. But if one really understands and accepts this is what is our constitutional position is all about. And how do we reach there? Krishna talks about in this interesting section called Sthita Pragya. So how does it begin? It actually begins with Arjuna's question, Arjuna Uvacha. Sthita Pragyasya ka bhasa samadhistasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhaseta kim asita vrajeta kim. Actually, there is a reason why Arjuna asked this question. We don't have enough time to go into that, but it is related to the previous verse. The previous verse, Krishna is referring to something called Achala Buddhi, person whose mind, whose intelligence is fixed, steady, a man of steady intelligence. Yesterday, when we were talking about how when Arjuna was telling that why a person is acting sinfully, even if he is unwilling. Athakkena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varsneya valadiva niyojitaha. Why is he acting? And to answer to that, Krishna told about Kamayesha, Krodhesha, Rajoguna Samudbhava, Mahasano Mahapapma, Viddhihenam Ihavayanam. And then he gives the hierarchy, the sitting place of lust. And what is the hierarchy? In that, intelligence comes above mind. So if a person has got steady intelligence, he can control his mind and senses, which is otherwise extremely difficult, impossible to control the mind and the senses. Always flickering, always agitated, always something or other is going on. So when Krishna mentioned about Achala Buddhi in the previous verse, Arjuna suddenly became alert and he asked this question, Sthita Pragyasya ka bhasa. The word is Sthita Pragya. Pragya is knowledge or intelligence, and Sthita is steady. Sthita Pragyasya ka bhasa. The first question that is asked by Arjuna is ka bhasa. Ka bhasa is, what is the language? Prabhupada explains in the purport, we can recognize a fool The moment he opens up his mouth, he may be well dressed, maybe dressed in suits, boots, everything. And like many other aristocratic gentlemen, he's also hiding himself in the guise of his dress. Moment he opens his mouth, one can know where he is. Sthita pragyasya ka bhasa. What is the symptom? How do I recognize a person who's sthita pragya? Samadhistasya keshava. Then the next question he's asking is, sorry, I'll come to this. Sthitadhi kim prabhaseta. Sthitadhi kim prabhaseta. How does he speak prabhaseta? Sthitadhi, the pragya word is replaced by dhi, whose intelligence is steady. Sthitadhi kim prabhaseta. How does he speak? Kim asita, third question. How does he sit? Vrajeta kim, fourth question. So the translation is, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? Symptoms, ka bhasa. Bhasa, even though literally means language, but actually it is referring to what is the symptom? How do I recognize a person who is sthita pragya? Sthita pragyasya ka bhasa. Samadhistasya keshava. Sthitadhi kim prabhaseta. How does he speak? And we will see actually these words which Arjuna is asking are not just a mere understanding of language or talking or sitting or walking. No, this refers something more profound and deeper, little cryptic, and Krishna explains that. And when we will see the answer to these questions, in this one verse there are four questions. Sthita pragyasya ka bhasa, what are the symptoms? Samadhistasya keshava, sthitadhi kim prabhasita, how does he speak? Kim asita brajeta kim. And we will try to see the answers as much as possible, time that we have. But before I go, I wanted to show you this slide. So importance of the words, the symptom. So there are symptoms of rich man and diseased man. This is Prabhupada mentioning in the purport. And a learned man. Similarly, symptoms of a self-realized soul are addressed here. And Prabhupada is saying most important symptom is how he speaks. Speech is the most important quality of any man. If you remember, we were talking about Bharat Maharaj past time, and there was an incident where Jada Bharat, in one of his three lifetimes are described in Bhagavatam, where he was carrying the palanquin and he was being chastised and rebuked, and by the king who was seated in the palanquin, saying that you are such a hefty, heavy, nicely built man. How are you not able to carry me properly? And he criticizes him. And when till that time, Jada Bharat was indifferent, callous. He was not even paying attention to what was going on because he was completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Moment he opens his mouth, moment a self-realized soul speaks. What is the symptom he is mentioning? Prabhupada is mentioning he speaks only of Krishna or matters relating to him. He has got no taste for talking about something which is material, which is nonsense. Immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious man. Okay, so this is the first question. Again, let me summarize the four questions which Arjuna is asking. And the first one is ka bhasa. What is the symptom? Kim prabhaseta. How does he speak? And we will see what does that mean. Kim asita. How does he sit? Brajeta kim. How does he walk? So the answers are given in the following sections. The first one, ka bhasa. What are his general symptoms? Krishna answers in just one verse. 55th verse. So how important that verse must be, we will see that. How does he speak? Basically, that means on receiving praise or blame, affection or hate, what will he say externally or internally? Because sometimes speaking externally is not visible, but I carry that ill feeling, that grudge, not just for that moment, maybe for lifetime. So on receiving praise or blame, either way, even praise also when it comes, we feel so happy. I just want to jump, but externally, no, I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm just normal. There's nothing big deal. But who knows what's going on internally? So what will he say externally or internally? And Krishna answers this in two verses, 56 and 57. We will see this. Kimasita, how does he sit? How does he sit means how does he restrain his senses from the sense objects? Sitting is a place of inactivity. You're sitting in one place. So what does that mean? That means, how does he restrain? How does he control himself? How does he restrain his senses from the sense objects? Brajeta Kim, and how does he respond to the sense objects? So if you pay attention, the answers are given from 55th till 71st verse. 72nd is not included. We saw that verse. Brahmistiti. Esha. So by following this, one comes to the Brahmistiti, the state of being fixed in Brahman. So what is that following thing, which is Krishna answering in this verse? The first one is Kabhasa, and the answer to that is given by Krishna in the 55th verse. He's telling Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. So this, we have to be careful now. This is Bhagavan, the Lord is speaking. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani evatmana tushtaha stita pragyasya tadochyate. So there is no, so like, the line that was mentioned in that purport of 2.72 was accepting and understanding, understanding and accepting. So here now we will hear something what Krishna is telling. One has to understand and then one has to accept. That's how one can come to the state of Brahmistiti in 1 second, Prabhupada says. So here it is mentioned, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. So the desires which are produced from our fertile brain, Prajahati, Prakrishta Rupena Jahati, give it up completely. So the symptom of a man who is having steady intelligence, Sthita Prajna or Sthita Dhi, what is the symptom? He first thing what he does is Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogata. From the mind, there are so many desires which are produced every moment. In a day, a healthy brain produces 90,000 thoughts, desires. 90% of those thoughts are negative and repetitive. So here Krishna is telling Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan, because this desires for enjoying or whatever which is produced of our mind can never satisfy us. Give it up. Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmani evatmana tushtaha stita pragyasya tadochyate. Atmani evatmana tushtaha. And who knows to remain satisfied within his self. The translation is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, Sarvan Partha, Arjuna is addressed here as Partha. When a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan, so all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, manogatan, and when his mind thus purified, atmani evatmana, so it becomes purified, find satisfaction, tushtaha. Today we were seeing the word satisfaction in the self alone. Then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Sthita pragyasya tadochyate uchyate. He is said. Even Krishna is telling not that it is my opinion. He is said. It is said, or it is mentioned in the scriptures that he is the Sthita pragya. Prajahati yada kaman. Do you think it is easy? Sarvan partha manogatan. So many desires we are getting, so many thoughts. Let me go in this way. Let me try this way. Let me this. But Sthita pragya is giving it up. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani evatmana tushtaha, and who is satisfied within himself, doesn't require any external gadgets, items, and other things. I want this. Without this, my life is just, I'll not be able to function normally. No. Atmani evatmana tushtaha sthita pragyasya tadochyate. So the general symptoms of a self-realized person, he gives up all material desires of sense gratification, born of mental concoction, thus purified in mind, one finds satisfaction in the self alone. So purification of mind comes when we give up this desire of sense gratification. There are so many desires, as I said, and everybody has their own preferences of indulging in different sense desires. But when one gets rid of them, when one gives up, that one becomes purified and finds satisfaction. How do we find satisfaction in the self? Easily said than done, but to be satisfied in self alone, one should know of Lord's love for us and our relationship with Him. Because otherwise, how can I remain satisfied within myself? So to know this, there are some things which Prabhupada mentions, not in the purport, but in a class that he has given for the 54th till 59th verse, that the Lord's qualities that especially benefits his devotees. One should know about them. Benefits of connecting our activities to Krishna and offering our fruits to Krishna. The second section, the session that we had on Yajna. Yajnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So when we do activities for Krishna, for his pleasure, for his satisfaction, yajnarthat karmano, that we become free from the bondage of the reactions. So benefits of connecting our activities to Krishna and offering our fruits to Krishna. His special favor to his devotees. Even though Krishna says that he is impartial to everyone and his mercy is falling on every living entity, but he has special favor to his devotees and his compassionate glance upon his devotees. Krishna takes personal interest in his devotee's life. He tells Arjuna to declare to the world, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Kaunteya pratijanihi, you declare, O Kunti Putra. Because Krishna himself has not kept his promise on several occasions. But he would never allow his devotee's word to go, that it cannot be that, his devotee's words are not kept. Krishna goes to any extent to protect the words of his devotees. Be it Brahma, who's giving benediction to Hiranyakashipu, or be it Narad Muni, who has given this assurance to Prahlad that he'll be protected. Krishna always protects the words of his devotees. So that's why he's telling to Kaunteya, to Arjuna, to declare to the world, Name Bhakta Pranashyati. So knowing this, actual state of affairs and our relationship with Krishna, his assurance, his protection, one remains satisfied within the self. Next is Krishna talking about the second question, the answer, how does he speak? This is answered in 2 verses. So as if you remember, Stita Pragyasya Kavhasa Samadhistasya Keshava Stitadhi Kim Prabhaseta. Kim Prabhaseta is how does he speak? Or as we saw earlier, how does he speak means how does he respond to a situation where maybe some praise or insult, or is he really getting excited externally or internally, or is he becoming morose or feeling sad? How does he do? And very interesting verses Krishna says, 2 verses, Dukkheshu anudvigna mana, Sukheshu vigata spraha, Vita raga bhaya krodha, Stitadhir munir uchyate. And then the next one, Yah sarvatra anabhishnehas, Tattat prapya subha subham, Nabhinandati, Nadveshti, Tasya pragya pratishtata. So these are 2 words, 2 verses, but very, very interesting. Dukkheshu anudvigna mana. So who is not bewildered amidst threefold miseries, Prabhupada is writing. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries. Dukkheshu anudvigna mana. Miseries are bound to come. What do you expect in material world? And there will be the shower of flowers on you for whatever we are doing. No, there are miseries. Because we have accepted this body, we are subjected to these threefold miseries. But a self-realized soul, Sthitadhir Munir Uchyate. And the word Sthitadhir Munir is very beautifully translated in the purport by Prabhupada. It is not about someone who's speculating. And he's quoting Baladev Vidyabhushan, who's another Sthitadhir Muni. To define what Muni is, we will see that in the purport. But interestingly, what the characteristics of a person, or how does he speak, or how does he respond to the situation, is mentioned by Krishna in these 2 verses. Dukkheshu anudvigna mana. One who is not disturbed. Being disturbed in threefold miseries is normal. That's what most people do. Because they really don't expect, even though they know it, they think, okay, that person is going through, this person is going through, but I'll not go through. It will not happen to me. I'm a devotee. I should be always taken care by the Lord. The Lord should not put me in any kind of difficult situations. Little do we realize that the material laws are created by the Lord, and they are acting based on our past karma. and based on the acceptance of the body, and we all have our karma and guna, and based on that, there are things which are acting or which are happening in our life by nature's own arrangement. We were seeing yesterday, there was one, the 2.7 purport. By nature's own arrangement, we go through these perplexities. Everyone goes through, and in every step of life we go through. So one who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness. Sukheshu bigata spruha. There is no elation when there is happiness. There is no agitation, or there is no disturbance when one goes through the threefold miseries. And who is free from attachment, fear, and anger. Vita raga bhaya krodha. We don't have enough time, but if you have time, please read the purport of 4.10, I think. And there Krishna or Prabhupada actually explains in a greater way how to come out of this raga, bhaya, and krodha. That verse is Vita raga, bhaya, krodha, manmaya mam upashrita, bahavo jnana tapasa, puta madbhava magata. That verse is sort of, assurance for people like us who sometimes feel, oh, am I doing right? We get some kind of doubts whether I'm following the right path, because I was following, my materialistic way of life for such a long time. All of a sudden, I've started doing something. What is going on? I mean, I'm not able to enjoy those things which was so nice earlier. They were giving me happiness. Should I continue or should I stop? That's why Krishna tells this verse in the 4th chapter, after speaking about his own self and transcendental knowledge, and having spoken Janma Karma Chame Divyam, Evam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti swarjuna. That he comes back to me, that he gives this verse, Vita raga bhaya krodha. A person who has given up this fear, the attachment, fear, and anger, Vita raga bhaya krodha man maya, thinks of me, mam upashrita, has taken shelter of me. Then what happens? Vita raga bhaya krodha man maya mam upashrita, bahavo jnana tapasa. Actually, Arjuna is telling, you are not the first person. Many people before you, bahavo jnana tapasa, by practicing this, by taking this transcendental knowledge and practicing this austerity, bahavo jnana tapasa, puta, they became purified. Madbhava magata, they came back to me. So if we think that sometimes, am I the first one to do this? I mean, my family, nobody else has done. My father is, so this thing. My mother was doing something. Brothers are all in different thing. I've become one rebel. I'm doing something. Nothing to worry about. Krishna is telling to Arjuna also, Vita raga bhaya krodha. These are the things which keep us in this material world. Get rid of this raga bhaya krodha. Manmaya, think of me. Mam upashita, take shelter of me. One of the sessions that we are going to have in this series is called Sharanagati. This is a very important concept in this entire Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is all about the protection of the Lord, but it doesn't come to everyone. Of course, the Lord protects everyone because he's our well-wishing friend, father, and he takes care of all our necessities. But the protection doesn't come. The protection comes after Sharanagati. That is a very important thing. So Krishna is telling, Manmaya mam upashrita. Puta madbhavam agata. They became purified and they came back to me. So don't worry. So that portion, talks about that. How do we get rid of this raga, bhaya, krodha? And in the next verse, actually, Krishna is telling, Yas sarvatra anabhishnehas tat prapya subha subham nabhinandati na dveshti tasya pragya pratishtita. So there are two things which are mentioned. Nabhinandati na dveshti. Is neither praising nor despising it. Nabhinandati na dveshti. So what is he not praising and despising? That there is something good which is happening and there is something evil which is happening. Subha asubha. So first thing is sukha dukkha, and he's telling Vita raga bhaya krodha, and then here it is now sukha dukkha. Subha asubha. Subha asubha means something good or bad which happens in our life. So he's unaffected. Sarvatra anabhishnehas. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it. Navinandati na dveshti. Some people curse so much, oh, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, this is not going on, that is also not. Always their life is full of negativities. Yes, kuch nahi ho raha hai life. And some people are always, everything is great. So neither praising nor despising it is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Tasya pragya pratishtita. So the meaning of how does his intelligence and words respond to affection, anger, and neutrality? How does he speak? And the answer is equipoised in happiness and distress. We saw that. Sukha and dukkha. Dukkheshu bigata, dukkheshu anubhignamana, sukheshu bigata spruha. Equipoised in happiness and distress. Free from attachment, fear, and anger. Vitaraga, bhaya, krodha. And unaffected by good and evil and firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. 57. So how does he respond to these different situations in life? This is what is the symptoms. This is how he responds. I'll skip this. Less time. This section is another very interesting section, 58 till 63rd verse, because this addresses the third question of Arjuna. How does he sit? Sthita pragyasya ka bhasa samadhistasya keshava stitadhir kim prabhaseta kim asita vrajeta kim. So kim asita. How does he sit? And if you remember, I told how does he sit means how does he restrain his senses? And that is spoken by Krishna in 58 till 63rd. It's a very, very, very important portion because there are a lot of interesting clues and interesting things which are revealed by the Lord, which we should pay attention to. Okay, I've got this first thing because I think one of the most important thing is this the series. But before we go there, I'll talk about this. Actually, 58 and 59 are also very important verses. So 58 verse, Krishna is telling Yada samharate chayam kurmo anganiva sarvasaha indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragyam pratishtita. We know this analogy, but remember the analogies of the Supreme Lord are very, very powerful. They are not some ordinary mundane analogies which we try to come up to explain some things, because this is the Lord giving. And he's telling Yada samharate chayam kurmo anganiva sarvasaha indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragyam pratishtita. Like a kurma. Kurma is tortoise. Tortoise is very intelligent to withdraw its senses. When it senses or experiences that there is some danger which is going to come, it withdraws. Yada samharate chayam kurma anganiva sarvasa indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragyam pratishtita. Very, very important is the ability to withdraw the senses from sense objects. This is the difficult thing. It is not, knowing is very easy, but when it actually comes to implementing it, we ourselves have experienced failure many times. Sense object comes in front of us and we fall victim. How do we withdraw? How do we learn the art of withdrawing the senses from sense objects? One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. Tasya pragya pratishtita. In the purport, Prabhupada gives another example of that of a snake or snakes. So the senses are like the snakes, but you remember, you see how a snake charmer can control these snakes by the play of his musical instrument. So a sthita prajna should know how to control his senses, because the senses are like the snakes, very, very dangerous, very venomous. But one who is able to withdraw, one who learns, one who has mastered this art is called sthita prajnasya tadochyate. This is all about restraining the senses. But Krishna actually in 59th verse gives a very important clue, very interesting thing, that artificial restraint is not going to help. We may try to restrain, oh, this sense objects, this is the enemy of mine. I should not go and indulge. I should withdraw. I should go and try to hide. I should do something so that it goes back and then I'll come out. Not always possible, and not always 100% foolproof, because the desire to enjoy is still there within our heart. And that is what is addressed in the 59th verse by Krishna, where he says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasovarjyam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Vishaya vinivartante. Even if I'm trying to restrain vinivartante, Vishaya, from the sense objects, niraharasya, by putting some artificial control. Nirahara is like not feeding. You're not giving anything to the senses. In niraharasya dehina. But still it is not possible unless rasovarjyam rasopyasya param drushva nivartate. Unless one experiences a higher taste, that only he can give up all this sugar taste. Otherwise, artificially trying to restrain this is not possible. 58 and 59, he speaks about this. 60th verse, actually, he gives a warning. Suppose you have not developed, you didn't develop Krishna consciousness. You've not developed a higher taste, right? That's what Krishna is telling. Rasobhajyam rasopyasya. Somehow somebody didn't develop the higher taste. That means what? So he's going after his senses, whatever the senses are, but he knows that this is not right and I should not be doing. Then the warning comes in 60th verse, and this is a very powerful warning. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. So the warning is yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha. Even if a person is very controlled, is a man of discrimination, vipaschitaha, very developed intelligence, and who's trying to control his senses. He knows that this is not good. Yatato hi api kaunteya purusasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini. But this indriya, the senses are pramathini. That's so maddening. That haranti prasabham manaha. So these words are haranti. Haranti means it's not like by love and affection. Okay, come. No. Haranti, it just snatches away. How? Prasabham, by force. The senses are so powerful. Indriyani pramathini, so maddening. Haranti prasabham mana, mind is taken away by force. This is the warning which Krishna gives. Yatato hi api kaunteya purusasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham mana. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who's endeavoring to control them. Forget about us, who even don't even bother, or who even do not know the art of how to control the mind or the senses. Then, okay, 61st and 62nd, 62nd and 63rd, I have got it in here. 61st verse, Krishna is telling, Tani sarvani samyamya, yukta asita matparaha, vasehi yasya indriyani, tasya pragyam pratishtita. That one who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Two things is there: restrains his senses and fixes his mind, his consciousness upon me. Tani sarvani samyamya, yukta asita matpara. Matpara is explained by Prabhupada in the purports multiple times. The word matpara, if you see in this also is explained. And it's a very important thing, what it means to fix the consciousness upon Krishna. And he gives the example of Ambarish Maharaj. Very practical. These are not any theoretical concepts. These are all very practical demonstration by different examples and beautiful explanations by Prabhupada. That's why I'm saying these are all very deep verses. But Prabhupada explains the word Matpara. He gives the example of Ambarish Maharaj, quoting this verse, Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vachamsi vaikuntha gunanavarnane. Karo harer mandira majana dishu strutim chakarachyuta satkathodaya. Beautiful verses. How a king who's apparently engaged in material activities could engage all his senses in the service of Krishna, starting with his own mind. Sabai manah Krishna padara vindayo. Sabai manah Krishna padara vindayo. Mind was fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. Vachamsi vaikuntha gunanu varnane. The words, the tongue was used for glorifying Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane, the qualities and the activities of Vaikuntha. Karo Hare Mandira Marjanadishu Shrutim Chakara Chuta Satkathoda. Like that, it mentions all the different parts of the body, how he engages. So that is what is the word Matpara means. Actually, desirelessness, Prabhupada writes in one of these purports, is not, desirelessness doesn't mean that you will have no desires. It is no desire save and except serving Krishna. Only desire that I have is how to engage in service of Krishna. That is the only, that is the state of desirelessness. So he speaks about this. So you remember, what is going on here. The question that we are trying to answer, or Krishna is trying to answer the question of Arjuna, where he's asking Kim Asita. How does he restrain his senses? We spoke the example of Kurma. how kurma or tortoise withdraws its senses when it sees some danger. And Prabhupada gives another example of snakes being controlled by the snake charmer. So similarly, a Sthitapragya knows how to withdraw his senses from the sense objects. 59th, Krishna says that it is only possible by developing a higher taste. Without developing a higher taste, by artificially trying to restrain or putting constraints will not help. 60th verse, Krishna says, warning, yatato hi api kaunteya purusasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham mana. Yatato hi api kaunteya. One who's purusasya vipaschita, man of discrimination, discriminating knowledge, yatato, yatato means he's trying, he's endeavoring to control his senses. Yatato hi api kaunteya purusasya vipaschitaha haranti prasabham indriyani pramathini. This pramathi indriya, the senses, are so maddening that it forcibly takes away. Haranti prasabham mana. And 61st verse, he's telling, Tani sarvani samyamya. Two things he's telling. That one who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So far, so good. Now, actually, Krishna says, and this is very, very important, how does a person fall down in this material pool? And this is mostly applicable for people who are not in Krishna consciousness, or even people who are in Krishna consciousness but not careful. That is why the Upanishad's lines are Shurasya Dharam. One has to be very careful walking on this, because this is a razor's edge. Slight inattention here and there can cause bloodshed. And the repercussions are so high, the damages done are so great, it is very difficult to undo. Very, very difficult. So that's why it's a caution which Krishna gives here, and this is very interesting to know. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinaso buddhinasat pranashyati. Buddhinasat pranashyati. Pranashyati means vinash, like pranashyati. It just falls down into this material pool. It's destruction. It's complete. Is finished. It's over. Buddhinasat pranashyati. What leads to that? Buddhinasat. When the intelligence is lost. When I lose the intelligence, everything becomes blurred. Good, bad, which is really beneficial, shreyas, prayas, everything becomes blurred. Who is really good for me? Who's really beneficial? Who are really my well-wishers? With whom I should listen to? Whom I'm not supposed to? Whose instructions I should follow? What to follow? What not to? Everything becomes buddhi nasha. Buddhi is gone now. The discrimination power is lost. Once the discrimination power is lost, nothing will happen. So we'll go in the reverse order so that we understand how serious it is. So buddhi nasa will happen when smriti bhramshat. Smriti bhramsat buddhi naso. Smriti is the remembrance. Because we are trying to understand, I'm not this body, I'm spirit, soul, I've got nothing to do with this. Prabhupada is asking, that important question in one of the lectures we were hearing at MIT. What is the difference between a dead body and a living man? All this knowledge is there at the back of our mind. But if smriti bhramshat, memory is bewildered, smriti bhramsat, I have no control over my memory. I don't even remember. You ask me nothing is coming. Smriti bhramsat buddhi naso. So when the memory is bewildered, then buddhi is nasa. Even the good intelligence, the good sense of coming in association of devotees also will not come. Taking help from the scriptures will not come. Taking help from chanting the holy names of the Lord will also not come. Because smriti bhramsat buddhi nasa. Intelligence is gone. It will give you all the different, all wrong ideas, wrong these things. So smriti bhramsat is so dangerous. But what leads to smriti bhramsat? How the smriti becomes bhramsa? How the memory becomes bewildered? Answer is sammohat. Sammohat is delusion. Delusion is a state of, it's a heightened version of illusion. Illusion is moha. It is delusion. In the state of illusion, in the state of delusion, sammoha, one actually is he doesn't know what is what, because he's not in his proper not in his proper state. So he is not able to figure out. So everything that is unreal is appearing real. Everything that is real is appearing unreal. So that happens. Sammoha. Then sammoha. How does sammoha come? Krodhat bhavati sammoha. When a person is angry, I mean, actually, it is not that I have achieved or I have attained. It's a fact that I've seen. When we get angry, krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha means delusion. Nobody should take any decision when one is angry, because usually it is wrong. Sammoha is there is a delusion. That's there is a somehow one has to learn to keep that state aside. That anger as a person, it Prabhupada writes at one place that it pollutes our consciousness. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. So krodhat bhavati sammoha. That krodha leads to sammoha. Sammoha is delusion, where you don't know what's right, wrong, and you're in a very unstable, unsteady state. And that leads to smriti vibhrama. Everything, all the good things are gone, erased. And then buddhinasa. Intelligence is lost and buddhinasa pranashyati. So what leads to krodha? Kamat krodho bhijayate. So it is when the lust, which is unfulfilled, the lust, even though it has a specific meaning of trying to enjoy with opposite sex, has a broader meaning of being attached to any particular material object. And the idea of enjoying with a material object. Kamat krodho vijayate. So when these desires are unfulfilled, 99% it happens like that. We can't fulfill all our desires. So many desires. I want this, I want that, I want this. And then scarcity of resource. We don't have all the good karma or everything to buy or to enjoy or to indulge. So it doesn't get fulfilled. Kamat krodho bhijayate. Immediately there is krodha. Actually, in another place, Prabhupada says, when the kama or the desires are fulfilled, it leads to greed. That is why in 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the divine and demoniac nature, it is mentioned, Trividham narakasyedam dwaram nasanam atmanam. Kamas krodhas tatha lobhas tasmadetat trayam tyajit. So kama, krodha and lobha, these are the three things. Kama, if it is satisfied, then it leads to greed. If it is unsatisfied, it leads to anger. Kama, krodha tatha lobhas tasmadetat trayam tyajit. So kamat krodho bhijayate. Okay. So from kama, if krodha is coming, question is, how does the kama come? Sangat sanjayate kamaha. By association, by associating with different sense objects, by associating with people with those kind of thoughts, one develops that kind of a desire. Kamat, sangat sanjayate kama. And how does that sangha come? Where the sangha is, what is the source, or how does the sangha come? Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu upajayate. Attachment for a sense object comes by dhyayato, by repeated meditation and contemplation. Oh, that was so nice, so good. Actually, all the happiness we are, like Madhubani Prabhu says, that we are imagining that in our mind. What an experience, my God, I had. And we remember after that experience, whatever that experience may be, the material sense gratification, lasted only for a few minutes, few seconds, whatever, some eating some gulab jamun, watching some movie, something. And then after that, it brings along with it so many problems. But that state we remember and repeatedly meditate. Wow, it was such a great state. Let me go for it. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa. Repeated meditation leads to attachment. Sangaste supajayate. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. That this attachment leads to desire. Kama, which is a force. And kamat krodho bhijayate. Classic example is given in the picture itself. You see, he's trying to restrain, he's trying to control Ajamil. But just that thought of a Sudra trying to embrace a Sudrani openly. In Satyayuga, this was a rarity. It doesn't happen so often. But we live in an age which is Kali Yuga, where this is not very uncommon, very common sight. So just this one thought and his repeated meditation, Vihayato Vishayan Pumsa, led to attachment. He got attached to that prostitute and got married, and everything after that, kama, krodha, samoha, smriti vibhrama, forgot everything and started indulging in all kinds of sinful activities. So these verses are not just simply, meant to be seen and forgotten. This requires a lot of contemplation. So this is a section. Contemplating the objects of the senses leads to attachment, and attachment develops into lust. And if lust unfulfilled anger arises, leads to complete delusion, then bewilderment of memory and intelligence is lost. Then one falls down into material pool. We are already in 8:30. I'll take another 5-10 minutes, but we'll finish this. You see, once the intelligence is lost, all the hopes are gone, because he falls down again into material pool. The next section, that's why Krishna talks about how do we get that intelligence which is not lost? What is the technique? What is the mechanism? Do you think we will be able to develop that kind of intelligence which is not bewildered, or to remain fixed and steady? Krishna actually answers in the next section. I will go to the how does he walk? Kimasita Brajeta Kim. So how does he walk is answered in 64th to 71st verse. And very, very interestingly, Krishna, 64th verse, I have some verses, but just pay attention to what I'm trying to say. Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu Vishayan Indriyes Charan. Charan, the word used here is charan. Charan is to graze, right? Charati. So that is, that's the beginning of realizing how he is addressing the fourth question of Arjuna, which is referring to how does he walk? Means how does he engage his senses? Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu Vishayan Indriyes Charan. Atma Vasair Vidhe Atma Prasadam Adhigachati. Here he's going to reveal some secrets, and this is worth knowing them. One who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord, and thus becomes free from all attachment and aversion. The clue lies in developing the mercy of the Lord. How do I make myself eligible to get the mercy of the Lord? Actually, to try to do this on our own is very difficult. Very, very difficult. Even to control anger, to control lust, to control everything. But if one gets the mercy of the Lord, that is our hope. By that, we can control over this. But how do we get there? How do we get the mercy of the Lord? One who can control his senses. Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu Vishayan Indriya Charan. By practicing the regulated principles of freedom. You see, why our Acharya, why Srila Prabhupada is telling that follow the 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds. He could have told one book he could have written for all his disciples, follow all these things. Of course, there are many other instructions we do follow. But when we take initiation, these are the only 2 things which we have to, we take a strong vow. Follow 4 regulative principles, chant 16 rounds. Every single day. So one who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Atma Vashair Videha Atma Prasadam Adhigachati. He gets the prasadam and thus becomes free from all attachment and aversion. In the next verse, actually Krishna tells what happens when he gets the mercy. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hani rasyopajayate prasanna chetaso hi asu buddhi paryavatishate. This is the clue that I was trying to tell. For one who is situated in divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. Buddhi paryavatishthate. The intelligence becomes steady by prasade sarva dukkhanam hani rasyopajayate. That mercy. Prasada is not just, taking prasadam. That is there grossly. But it is the mercy of the Lord. And that mercy of the Lord comes as it is mentioned in the previous verse. Prasade sarva dukkhanam. Once one gets that mercy of the Lord, sarva dukkhanam hani rasyopajayate. For one who is situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. Those intelligence can become steady by the mercy of the Lord. We have to become qualified to receive the mercy of the Lord. 66 and 67, they are very, very important verses. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayantah santir asantasya kutah sukham. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya. Actually, this verse is so profound, very small verse, 2.66, but very important verse. Because Krishna is telling one who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence. So you see, the consciousness is the key. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence. And if you don't have this, both controlled mind or steady intelligence, without this, there is no possibility of peace. Nacha bhavayantah santir. Peace is not possible. And if peace is not there, where is the question of happiness? Asantasya kutah sukham. How can there be any happiness without peace? So if the mind and intelligence, if this is not connected to Krishna, one who is not in transcendental consciousness can have a neither controlled mind nor steady intelligence, and without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? In this purport, Prabhupada talks about one very important thing, that most of the people in this material world don't have a clear goal. Lack of spiritual goal, disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. And when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. It's a very important line. Think about it later on. Disturbance is due to, people are disturbed. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. People don't know what to do. Somehow we've been told to, get some good education. We tried. We went to some college. Then they told us to get married. We got married. Then we produced some children. Then we have some house, and we are living. We're living. We are working. What else? I'm going to work, and I'm coming, and I'm taking care of my family. Okay. Then what else? Oh, we'll go now. Some seasonal things are coming. So now winter we will sit in the home, or now summer has come. Now let's go and enjoy outside. So this is just going on. But if Prabhupada, if you see the purport, he's telling disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. People are not clear that, actually this, like yesterday we were seeing that human form of life is a loophole by which we can come out of the cycle of birth and death. So then I have to be very serious. This is one chance. There is a goal in front of me. And when somebody is aware of his goal, he will not be disturbed. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. And when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. I want you to read on your own because our mind automatically switches off as we reach the time. But there is one verse which I want to tell you, and then with that we will close. Is the 71st verse. It says, "Vihaya kaman yasarvan Pumams charanti nispriha nirmamo nirahankara sasanti madhigachati." Krishna is telling a person who can attain real peace, because that's what we are looking for. And he's telling there are following things that he should do. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification. First thing, Vihaya Kaman Yasarvan, which was there in the first 2.55 also, where Krishna was telling Prajahati Yada Kaman. So here the word used here is Vihaya Kama. Yasarvan. So again, Sarvan, who has given up all desires for sense gratification. First, then, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship. Nispruha. Free from desires, and nirmamo, who is given a false sense of proprietorship, nirahankaraha, who is devoid of false ego. He alone can attain real peace. So read this verse, this section more thoroughly. It's difficult to cover this in an hour's time, but there are many interesting things which Prabhupada reveals in this purports. I'll take, so they're all powerful. So the conclusion is, the conclusion once more. One thus situated, as explained till now, at the time of death, enters the kingdom of God. We saw that. Thus, Krishna glorifies the position of Sthita Prajna. That is the way of spiritual and godly life. If you see the 2.72 translation, all these words are there. This is the way of spiritual and godly life. After attaining this, one is not bewildered. And the summary is, we saw the process of fall down, right? 2.62 to 63. Artificial repression doesn't help, although artificially. So it is the state of a person who's not in Krishna consciousness and how easily he can fall down. First, we saw 62 to 63. Then Krishna says artificial repression doesn't help. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. And there are two analogies which are given. Diseased patient, restricted from food, the taste still remains. The desire to enjoy still remains. An example given there is Vishwamitra Muni. One cannot enjoy life. Even slight agitation makes him fall down. That's there in 2.63. We saw that Vipaschitaha, that verse. And boat swept away by the wind is another verse which Krishna says. And the example again is Vishwamitra Muni. No peace, because there is no relationship with Krishna. And there is a comparison of yogi versus devotee, Durvasa Muni versus Ambarish Maharaj, which is given. So this is the state of a person who doesn't take up to Krishna consciousness and how he easily can fall down. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions. Oh, cannot unmute. Okay, good. 1 second. Thank you for that. Now you'll be able to unmute yourself. Can you try?
Yeah, it worked.
Sanchita Mataji, you had a question? No.
Prabhu, it was for earlier when you asked whether we can see the screen. Yeah, in the beginning. Yeah. Thank you.
Shrey, you have any question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Yes, Chandrabha Mataji.
I just want to clear one thing that original Gita was having 70 shlokas. Later on, it converted into 700.
No. Where did you hear all this?
Somebody yesterday, somebody told me, and he showed me the original Gita, with 70 shlokas.
Who is he? Where is he coming from?
He is one Arya Samaji person, he does all that Havan and all that, yajnas.
No. There is no contention or confusion or kind of doubts in that. The entire 18 chapters, 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita were spoken in the battlefield of Kurukshetra between Krishna and Arjuna.
Okay.
And the historians say maybe it would have taken about 45 minutes to 1 hour, but yeah, about it. And they heard Arjuna heard once, and we see the beginning how Tvakchaiva paridakhyate, Sramsate Hastad, Gandivam Sramsate Hastad, his Gandiva Bhav he was not able to carry, and his skins are burning, and Ashru Purna Kulekshanam, his eyes are filled with tears. He's confused. That same Arjuna, when he heard it with proper attention, once that he could come to the state where he says, Nashta Moha Smritir Labdhva, Tvat Prasadat Mayachyuta, Stitosmi Gata Sandeha, Karishye Bachanam Tava. That state is possible for us also to attain if we hear and allow this knowledge shared by Krishna to purify our intellect, our mind. If we follow them, then we can also come to that same state. And the more we hear, the more we read, the more we try to see from different angles, the more we can appreciate, the more we can understand, the more we can assimilate. It never becomes dull, it never becomes old, it never becomes stale. It is always fresh. It's always fresh.
Prabhu,
Hare
I
Krishna.
have one.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Prabhu, I have one question from yesterday's class. Yesterday, you had mentioned that there are 4 bona fide spiritual disciplic successions. Can you please mention those 4 once again?
Yeah, so Krishna actually shares this knowledge with 4 important personalities. The first one is Brahma, the first created living being. And Brahma in turn speaks to Narad Muni, then Narad Muni in turn speaks to Vyasadeva. So if you have a copy of Bhagavad Gita, go to the introduction last page, where Krishna actually, where Prabhupada lists this Guru Parampara. So you can see that. So this Parampara or the Sampradaya is called Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Because in this Parampara, the Parampara Acharya is Brahma, and the predominant Acharya is Madhvacharya. So that's why this is called Brahma Madhva Gaudiya. Gaudiya because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, and then from his followers it's called Gaudiya Sampradaya. So Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Then there is Krishna speaking this knowledge to Lakshmi, her eternal consort, his eternal consort. And Lakshmi Devi in turn speaking to her disciples. In that the main Acharya is Ramanujacharya. So that is why this Sampradaya is called Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. Sri means Lakshmi, or the followers of Lakshmi. Then there is Rudra Sampradaya, where Krishna spoke this knowledge to Rudra, or Lord Shiva, and his followers. In that, the main Acharya is Vishnu Swami, so, and his followers. And then Krishna spoke to the 4 celibate sons of Brahma, who are known as the Chatush Kumar, 4 Kumaras, Sanat Kumar, and Sanandan. There's a little bit of. So 4 Kumaras, and then the followers of 4 Kumaras. In that, the main Acharya is Nimbark Acharya. That is called Kumara Sampradaya. So these are the 4 bona fide Sampradayas.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah,
I have one question actually. On 25th of December, we have Vaikuntha Ekadashi, right? So, do we need to? Which type of food we can eat? Only grains we should not eat, or is there any other thing we have to follow?
If you are able to fast, it is good.
Yeah, I'll fast, but in fasting, what we can eat? Is it like special type of Ekadashi, different from other?
Not really, but of course, fasting means there is no food at all. But if you're not able to do, then you can take some juice. If you're not able to do, then you can take some fruits. If you're not able to do, then you can take some varai and sabudana. There are different levels, but this Ekadashi is very special because on this day, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. Another significance of this, maybe if, another day when we get time, we can talk about how Namalvar, one of the Alvars in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, went back to Godhead, to Vaikuntha, in his own body, in that own body. So it's a very special day, very, very auspicious day. Austerities performed in these days, Ekadashi is Bhakti Pradayini. It gives bhakti. Austerities performed in these days help one advance in spiritual life. These are not austerities performed for any other reasons. You're not doing it for some health related things or for some other reason that you're trying to fast. So if you're able to fast completely, that's the best. But as I said, there are other different grades also. You're on mute, Ankit.
Sorry, thanks, Prabhuji.
So So we will have 2 more sessions on this series of Bhagavad Gita. As I said, there are many important themes, interesting themes, and every theme in itself is. Oh, I didn't talk about the 18th chapter, but you can refer to the verses from 51st to 50. 51st to 53rd verse. It actually also talks about the same Sthita Prajna in this 51st, 52nd, 53rd. You can read that. So we will have 2 more sessions. One is definitely on Saranagati, the last session. Very interesting, very important. As I said, these are all important themes of Bhagavad Gita. And even though we are not touching the entire Bhagavad Gita, but this gives us the essence of Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is telling. We are planning to have the entire Bhagavad Gita sloka recitation on Vaikuntha Ekadasi day from 4 o'clock. It might take about 3 hours or so, 3.5 hours. So 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. If you're able to dial in wherever you are at whatever time possible and convenient, do join us. If you are able to read yourself, do that. Very auspicious. Vaikuntha Ekadasi is also, very significant because of the Vaikuntha Dwara, where it is mentioned if somebody passes through the Vaikuntha Dwara of a temple on that day, it is as good as entering into Vaikuntha. The Lord welcomes him in Vaikuntha. So visiting a Vishnu temple is very auspicious. Doing charity on that day is very auspicious. So these are some of the things which usually people do. And also we will have a celebration for 31st December night, welcoming the new year in a Krishna conscious way. There will be some surprises. There will be lots of wonderful kirtan. So that's how we will welcome the new year with a new consciousness. That's about it. So if no further questions or queries, we will stop here and we will meet again next week on Saturday. Before we do that, I request everyone to come in front of your camera and raise your hands, and we will chant once Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जगरंतरा श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे. Hare Krishna. Good to see you, Lakshmana Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.